Hi, this is Karen Liebert German, and I'm the Reading Recovery Teacher and Literacy Specialist at Shepherdsville Elementary. Today I'm going to be talking to you about supporting print work when I get to a tricky word, and this is step 3. This is for our students that are intermediate readers to fluent readers. So in step 3, when you get to a tricky word, these are our intermediate and fluent readers, so they have minimal support from pictures. They're going to see a picture, a small picture, but there's a lot more going on in the text. So it's very important for the reader to listen to themselves read for meaning. Once they get to that tricky word, they know it's time for the reader to reread, which we have to do that for our meaning. And then they have to take that word apart and then put it back together and reread the sentence or phrase to make sure the sentence makes sense and looks right. So again, when we're doing this, we will prompt our students. We will prompt them because we're giving them a call to action. We want them to do something. So when they come to that tricky word and they need help, you should tell them that they need to reread the sentence, take that tricky word apart, put the word back together, and reread the sentence to make sure it makes sense and looks right. Now, we don't have to say all of those things at one time because that's a lot of stuff. So we can say things like, let's start trying to take that word apart. What's the first part you see? Reread the word part by part. Or try taking off the ending and let's read the rest first. You really worked hard at that word using all your strategies you know, and you got it. So let's try it. We are going to be using some pictures from Daisy to the Rescue, which was written by Michelle DeFrisney, who is the owner of Pioneer Valley Books. So as you can see in this picture that there are 4 dogs and they are in the yard. So the text reads 1, and that highlighted word is going to be our tricky word. So the student starts to read and they say 1 and they get there and they don't know what to do. So you can say reread and let's read the word part by part. So they would say 1, and if you look down at the bottom, they could say afternoon. We're finding those parts for them. Afternoon. Or they also could know that word after, and that's the bigger part of the word. If they know that part of the word, we want them to try to find the bigger part first. So 1, afternoon. But both of these are okay ways to figure out and break that word apart. So now we don't read 1 afternoon. They have to pull that all back together and make sure that it makes sense and it looks right in our story. So 1 afternoon, Jack, Daisy, Bella, and Rosie were playing. So they notice now that that does look right. It makes sense. It sounds right. So we know that we're correct. But they were able to take that word, that tricky word, apart. And we don't want to go letter by letter. We want to find those parts in words. So again, we're going to use this same picture. And the text reads, suddenly a chipmunk dashed by in the, and there's the tricky word. So we could prompt our students to say reread, and let's read that word part by part. So if we did that, suddenly a chipmunk dashed by in the, they could actually say yard, but we don't read yard. We say yard. So it's okay to break it apart, but that's why they have to pull it back together. They could also say yard, and that's another way to break that word apart. So if they went back to reread, suddenly a chipmunk dashed by in the yard. Now that makes sense. It sounds right and it looks right. So we're going to try one more. Here's another picture of 2 dogs in the yard. But the text says she's too fast. And there's the tricky word, Daisy. So again, we can look at this and we're going to prompt our student to say, try taking off the ending and let's read the first part. So if we took off the ED, that ending, we got to get them to try to figure out what that root word says. And they can break it like this. Complain. Then they can work on that ending. Complained. They also can go complained. But again, it's a lot easier to take off some of those endings, the ED endings, the ING endings, the S endings, and figure out what that root word says first. So when your child would actually break that word apart, then they have to go back and pull it all back together. And remember, we do this for meaning. They have to have the meaning of the story because reading is a meaning-making process. It's all about understanding the story. She's too fast, complained Daisy. I couldn't keep up with her. So let's review. Step 3 is what for our intermediate and fluent readers who are reading for meaning and using what they know about words to figure out the tricky word, which is usually those multisyllabic words, just bigger words made up of smaller words or smaller parts. And they have to take those words apart and put it back together and reread. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed learning about our intermediate and fluent readers and helping them figure out tricky words.